This NFL parlay hits 90% of the time, and I'm going to show you exactly how to find it. Now, if you guys stick around, I'm going to give you guys a free pick that correlates with this parlay so you can put it in with the video. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to identify what type of play this is going to be. So first, we need to be able to find a quarterback, okay? We need to find a quarterback that's going to be a starter and not a rookie and not a backup. So what I mean by that is a true starter. You know, somebody that is the quarterback, been the quarterback for that team, and not necessarily a veteran, but somebody that has been with the team for a minute. Because we don't want somebody in their first career season, okay? We don't want that. And then we don't want, if the starter got hurt, the backup that comes in. We don't want to focus on that. So the first thing is finding a starter that's the regular starter, not a rookie, not a backup. Now let's move on to number two. Number two, we're going to use a website that I showed you guys in other videos. If you haven't seen those videos, well, this is the website. It's going to be Team Rankings, okay? You could use this to find this stat that we're about to dive into right now. So once you go on Team Rankings, what you're going to do is you're going to go into the NFL section, Team Stats, okay? Then you're going to go to Passing Defense. Now, once you find Passing Defense, now what you're going to do is go to Yards per Completion, okay? This is going to be allowed. So this is what the defense allows, okay, first off. So this is what the defense allows. You're going to go on Team Rankings, go to Pass Defense, Yards per Completion that is allowed by the defense. Then you're going to filter to the top, being the worst teams up top. Now, once you filter to the top and the worst teams are up there, you could range it from about the top 5 to 10 worst teams for yards per completion. That means they're the worst at giving up decent chunks when the quarterback throws the ball and the receiver catches it. So once we've identified our 5 to 10 teams that are the worst for yards per completion, then we're going to obviously refer back up to here to the starters, okay? And write down the quarterbacks that are the starters that are facing these 5 to 10 teams that are just terrible at yards per completion allowed. And you're going to write those guys down and cross out ones that are rookies or backups. Now let's get to number 3. Once you have those quarterbacks written down, next thing you're going to do is now you're going to look at those QB stats for completions on the season. And what we're going to do here is we're going to grab an average. So you're going to get an average of the completions that the quarterback gets on the season. Okay, so if they played like 10 games or whatnot and you're looking at it, you're going to take, it kind of does it for you, but you got to do the math. You got to do a little bit of math here, okay? So what you do is you'll take the total completions. I'll write that down. So you'll take the total completions and then you divide that by the number of games. Okay, once you do that, then that's going to give you your average completion that those quarterbacks get per game. And most of them are probably going to be in the 20s. It's probably going to be like 19, 20, 21, something like that. Okay, that's what they're going to average the amount of completions that they get per game. Now let's go ahead and get to number 4 here. Because by this time, you should have the quarterbacks written down, your list, and their average completions that they get per game. Now what you're going to do here is you're going to multiply the yards per completion that's allowed. Okay, you're going to take the yards per completion that's allowed from the defense that you already researched. And what you're going to do there is you're going to multiply that by the average completions for the QB per game. Okay, what that's going to do is now that's going to go ahead and give you pretty much a projection for the amount of yards that that player can get in that game. So once again, the equation should look like this. The yards per completion times that by the average completions from the QB. All right, so that's the equation for that, and that will give you a projection. You'll be able to literally get a projected yardage from your quarterback. Now, like I said, I'm going to show you guys a free pick that correlates with this because it only makes sense when you actually see it real life and actually see it and be able to adapt it to a certain play. So make sure you guys stick around for that. Now let's get to number 5 now. Okay, so we got our quarterback written down. We got our yards per completion. We times that by the average completions that he had. And then we got our number. We got our projection for yardage. Okay, now the next step that we're going to do here. To complete the parlay, we need to also be able to go back to Team Rankings, go under Passing Defense again, and go to Pass Touchdowns Allowed. Now once you do that, you filter to the top again, just like we did with our yards per completion that was allowed. And now you're going to see the worst teams at allowing passing touchdowns. So what you're going to do now is you're going to take the 5. Okay, we're not going to stretch it here. We're going to go 5. Okay, the 5 worst teams at giving pass touchdowns allowed. That's what we're going to do. We're going to take those and we're going to make sure that the quarterback that we have written down with the projections, okay, that is going against the worst teams, also that defense falls on this list right here. And that should honestly bring you down to maybe like 1 or 2 quarterbacks. Maybe 2, but usually probably about 1 it'll bring you to. So what that does is pretty much filter your list to bring us to what the parlay is going to be that we're going to do. And the parlay is going to be a correlation parlay. That's what it is, okay? It's a correlation parlay where we're going to take the passing yards and we're going to take also passing touchdowns, okay? What you're going to do here is for the passing yards, okay, the number that you're going to take is the number that has the biggest edge. And how you find that biggest edge is going to be, you're going to have your projection, you'll have your projection number up, but what you need to do is you need to go and find the quarterback that you have written down when it filters all the way down to pretty much, 1 or 2. You're going to take the quarterback, you're going to take their passing yards, and you're going to look for the number that they surpassed. If they've played 10 games, at least 9 out of the 10 games, okay? Because we're looking for at least a 90% true probability rate here. So what you're going to do is you're going to go passing yards, look for a 90% true probability rate, okay? By going and finding the number for the passing yards that player has hit at least 90% of the time. And then what we're going to do is we're going to correlate that with pass touchdowns being 0.5 or 1 plus, meaning that they just have to throw 1 touchdown. What we're doing here is essentially putting together a parlay that's a correlation parlay where you have a quarterback that's going against a team that allows yards per completion at a high rate, so they rack up the passing yards, and they're worst at allowing passing touchdowns. They should allow at least 1 touchdown to that quarterback as well. Now, for the percentage rate here, so we need a 90% true probability rate for passing yards. Well, you're going to need the same thing here for passing touchdowns. Okay, you're going to need about a 90% true probability rate. Okay, this is for just a touchdown. Okay, this is going to be the true probability for the passing yards. This is going to be true probability for a TD. All right, we need at least a 90% on both ends here. And I'm going to show you that in a second, the reason why. Now, the reason why is because your passing yards, the odds for this aren't going to be that crazy. Okay, they're probably going to be, I don't know, anywhere from minus 200 to minus 300. Okay, but this is where you're going to have some trouble with. Okay, because the odds for this they're going to skyrocket. They're going to be like a minus 1,000 or minus 1,500, something like that. Okay, they're going to be crazy. So essentially, again, what you're doing here is you're creating a correlation now that's still going to give you a plus edge. I'm going to show you how you get that plus edge because then that's how it comes together and it all makes sense. So again, we're taking passing yards, passing touchdowns, 1 plus touchdown, and whatever yardage that gives you that 90% true probability. Now, if we have both of those put together, what we do here is we put it in a same game parlay. So what you're doing here is you're taking a 90% and a 90%, putting them in a same game parlay that's going to give you an 82% probability. Okay? This is the true probability behind that. When you put those two together, the chances of hitting 2 plays at 90%, both of them hitting, is 82%. It's not 90%. Okay? People get this, like, they make this mistake a lot when they see something like this. This does not mean it's 90%. Okay? You get 82% true probability here. Now, for example, let's say put those two together. Okay? If you put these two together, you get like minus 298. Okay? If you get that, then you're going to come to a 75% now implied probability. Thus giving yourself now, what is that? A 7% edge. Plus 7% edge on a same game parlay correlation for a quarterback. Now let's go ahead and get into that free pick so that way you guys can see exactly how this plays out. So the example that I'm going to use here is going to be for Patrick Mahomes. And he is playing Cowboys. So let's go ahead and run the numbers on Patrick Mahomes now. And let's see exactly how we can correlate this and see if it makes sense. Let's just see if it makes sense, okay? So first off, let's take the yards per completion allowed by the Cowboys, which is 10.8. We're going to times that by the average completions that Patrick Mahomes gets over the season, which is 23.81. Okay, that brings our total to 257. That's our projection for his passing yardage. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the true probability of him being able to hit the certain numbers in passing yardage. So we'll start out with 250. He hit that 82% of the time. Now we're looking for 90% here is ideally what we want. We want 90%. So let's drop it to 230. 230, we get the same exact percent here. So you get 82% at 250 and at 230. So let's drop it one more. We're going to drop it down to 220. And at 220, he hits that 91% of the time. So we found our number. Okay, our number here is going to be 220. So let's go ahead and write down first Mahomes to pass for 220. That's going to be our first correlation, right? Now again, what you have to do here is you have to make sure that the defensive team here, falls in the category of bottom 5 for giving touchdown passes allowed and also bottom 10 at yards per completion allowed. And the Cowboys do. Cowboys fall in that category. And Mahomes, obviously, is not a rookie and he's not a backup. He is a starter. So now once we've did that, let's take a look at Mahomes to get one touchdown. Okay? One touchdown, what his true percentage on that is going to be. Now, ideally, like I said, we want 90% ideally, because if we could smash two 90% plays together, gives us a higher edge. It's going to create a higher edge, okay? But sometimes it doesn't hit exactly that 90%. So 1+ pass touchdown for him on the season is going to be 82%. That's his true probability for him to get 1 pass touchdown in the game. So now what we have to do here is we got to find the odds. We're going to write the odds down for this. So for Mahomes 220 is going to be 357, and then for him to get 1 touchdown is minus 1,000. So now when we go and correlate these together, the odds that we're going to get are going to be a parlay here, pretty much the same game parlay. That's minus 253. And now 253, let's take our implied probability here, which is going to be 71%. Now we have to take that and correlate that with our true probability percentage here when we mash a 91% true probability with an 82% probability. That's going to give us now a true probability of 74%. So not a crazy edge, but you still have a plus edge here. We still have a plus 3% edge for a correlation play of Patrick Mahomes to have 220 passing yards and to throw 1 passing touchdown against literally a team that allows worst literally in pass touchdowns and yards per completion. So you're setting yourself up for success in this area and giving yourself a plus edge with the correlation parlay. Now let's write down the websites that you need for this so that way you guys can see it. And I'm going to take you through the journey of the website so that way it's easy for you to see. So team rankings is what we're going to use for the pass, defense, yards per completion, and passing touchdowns allowed. So what you're going to do is you go on team rankings, you go to NFL team stats. This is the exact journey that you're going to take, okay? Go to NFL team stats, then you're going to go to passing defense, and then under passing defense, you're going to look for yards per completion. And of course, that's going to be your journey to get the yards per completion, and then filter worst to the top. Now you don't have to do this, but it's just easier to look at. If you just filter to the top and you know exactly the ones that you're looking at, you don't have to scroll all the way to the bottom. Now to get the pass touchdowns, it's the same exact thing here, okay? We're going to go team rankings. You're going to go NFL team stats. Now passing defense, same thing. The only thing that's different is you're going to go to, instead of yards per completion, you're going to go to pass touchdowns allowed. Same thing. As soon as you do that, filter the worst at the top so that way you have your list there. And that's how you're going to come up with your list for the quarterbacks. Now let's go ahead. Once you find your quarterbacks, where are we going to look for the stats at? Now there's a couple ways to do this. First one's going to be ESPN, obviously. You can go to ESPN stats, pull up the cube, and you're able to see all their stats. And you can kind of longhand it. So what you would do is you take the total, obviously completions, and then you're going to divide that by the games. And once you do all that, you're going to come up with your number. That's how you're going to be able to get your projection to correlate with the pass defense with the yards per completion. Now, there is another website, and it's an app. It's called Outlier. A lot of people use it. Now, it kind of shortcuts a lot of this stuff. So what you can do is you can go on Outlier and you pull up like Mahomes, for example, and you pull up and see how many passing yards. You can literally type in 250 and it'll show you like he hits that 82% of the time. 220 shows that he hits that 91% of the time. It kind of just does all the math for you so that way you can see it. It saves you time. So if you want to longhand it, then you can go to the ESPN and kind of longhand everything. If you want to, just kind of save a bunch of time there, you can go to Outlier, but it is a paid app, so you do got to pay. You got to pay to save time. It's just like anything, all right? You got to pay to save time. So you can go to Outlier. Now, the one thing that I want to address And this is probably one of the most important parts of the video, I'll just be honest. Because when people go use this app right here, okay, this app right here gives you percentages of an event occurring. And people mistake. They think that that means the true percentage and what true percentage means. Okay? Your true probability, your true percentage, does not necessarily just mean the stipulation of that happening at that very moment. Things have to line up. So if you go on this app, you'll see a play that says 100%, a play that says 90%, a play that says 95%. Well, just because it says that doesn't mean that's the true probability. The reason why is because true probability, the definition from that, to me, the true probability is you got to have the matchup as well to line up. Everything has to make sense for that to line up to actually be a true probability. Because for true probability numbers, if you're just using numbers off of, just an app, that right there, they're not going to change. They're going to stay the same. Like this number right here, these numbers that I showed you for Patrick Mahomes stay the same. But let's say he was playing the best pass defense in the NFL that gives up little bit of yards per completion and barely any touchdowns. He's still going to have the same probability here overall, but he doesn't have that great matchup. And that's what the definition of true probability really is you have to have the lineup, the matchup, and everything to pretty much gel to get that edge. Because just because the percentages are what they are doesn't mean you have an edge because the matchup could not be there. So you have to have the matchup as well. If you have a favorable matchup and you have the edge, that is true probability. Not just having an edge straight out and it doesn't matter what team they're playing or what defense they're playing. That's not how it works. You have to have the matchup to create a true probability and to actually truly give yourself a plus edge.